G'day everyone, welcome back. I'm Todd from Toxic Garage Customs, and today we're going to continue on with the brake booster pedal steering column mount bracket fabrication. So what I'm hoping to get done today, and you'll find out whether I get there, is to get this thing finished. Get it mounted in, get it attached to the dash, and get the brake pedal hanging off it. If I can achieve that, then I'll be kicking goals. So that's what I'm aiming to do. So ride along. Let's see how far I get. See if I catch on fire. It's been known to happen before. Come with me. Well, I don't know what happened, but this thing was perfect when I went to bed last night. And then I've come out today and I need to change it. Only a little bit. I don't know what happened, but this here, I need to move it down this way, about 10 mil. I might move it pretty close to the end of this plate. I have no idea why. I was mucking around with it, thinking maybe I've got something mounted incorrectly or spaced out too far or something. I can't work it out. Whether it changed shape slightly when I've welded it, which can happen, I don't know. But look, what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to remove this, going to cut these welds, and I'm going to move it down and I'll weld it back on again. So you get that on the big jobs. So I cut the this bridge part off and I cleaned it up, took it back out to the truck, clamped it in place. I think I know why it was in the wrong spot. And as I said, it just needed to move this way a bit. I think what it was that when I was test fitting this last night, just to make sure it was okay, I'm not sure that I did the booster bolts up, nuts up fully. And when I did that, it actually changed where it's at. So my bad. It's taken a little while to clean that up, but it's okay. So I only put some tack welds on that just to hold it in place. You can see this paint here. What I've done while it was in place, I shot some red primer up through where the breakaway mounts mount, and I also just sprayed some down here, not so much on here but on the firewall, so that when I go to put this back in place, I've got a shadow, some telltale signs of where it was when I was happy with its fitment. So time will tell whether I'll be happy with it after I do this again, but hey, you live and learn. I've lived and I've learnt before, so I actually don't know what happened, so I'm going to say it's because of loose bolts. So what I'm going to do is I'll put a bit more weld on this. What I did realise was that bracket was never going to fall off, so that was a good thing. So I'm going to weld it on. I'm going to cut the middle of it out like I said I was going to previously in the previous video, and I'm going to drill some holes for these breakaway mount points, and I'll find some bolts and weld nuts in there for captured nuts for those bolts, and move along to where I thought I was actually going to get to today. So let's see how I go now. No doubt about it. I definitely made that task harder for myself than it needed to be, but I've ended up with the result that I want. So I've got those two blocks just here. I cut that middle section out because I don't need it. It's actually just these pieces I wanted. I'd probably do the process a little bit differently next time, but look, it'll work. So at the end of the day, I've got these two blocks. This will all be hot. Get those sharp bits of metal off. So now I'm going to go through and I will start putting some holes in there for the bolts for the breakaway mounts. So I've got this set up. I'm just going to centre punch some holes for where I want those bolts to go through. I've been looking through my selection of bolts, and to be completely honest, I'm really limited on what I've got at the moment. So I'm going to use these. These are some M10s. They're high tensile. Whether I use these exact bolts, I don't know, but I've got these. I've got a couple of them, which will give me a chance to install it at the moment. So I'm going to centre punch, then I'm going to pre-drill, then I'm going to drill a hole to roughly the right size, just slightly smaller than what I need for my tap. And then I'm going to tap some holes into here, remembering that this is actually 5mm plate here, and this is 5mm plate. So I'm confident that I will be able to cut enough threads in there that it will grab. If I've got any concerns, then what I can do is I can get the matching nuts for these, put them in underneath and weld them there and keep it all in place. So then I'll have plenty of thread count to be able to stop these from falling out. So 3 holes, 3 bolts, 3 threads. So I'm not going to put you through the pain of watching this in real time, so we'll do this in a sped up version. So what I just did then was I centre punched the holes for where I need these threads to go. And this is what I've done. I've drilled those, and again, that's according to the marks that I got from the paint. And then I just started off and I drilled a pilot hole with a little 3mm bit, and then I stepped up drill bit size each time. No particular size. I just didn't want to try and drill a large hole straight off, because it overheats the tip of your drill bit. You destroy your drill bits. People get frustrated by not being able to drill into material, and often it's because they're trying to use too big a drill bit straight off. Pilot hole centers the hole for you, and then if you step up bit by bit, then you're cutting into a hole rather than to solid material, and you're just enlarging that hole. So this is the drill bit that I'm using. I need some new drill bits. They're all starting to slip, and when that happens, they get stuck in the drill. My chucks in my drills are probably a bit worn as well. But what I'm using is this M10 bolt, and the M10 bolt, with any bolt, when you're trying to work out what size drill bit to use, you want to hold the drill bit, and you want the drill bit to block out the solid part of the bolt when you're looking at it, and just leave the threads visible from the side. What that means is that you're cutting a hole that is the right size for the center of the bolt, but leaving enough metal there to be able to cut the threads into. If you drill it too big, then the bolt won't have very much thread contact and it'll strip out. And if you cut it too small, then the worst thing that usually happens is that you actually snap your tap. And the tap is a thread cutter that is exactly the same size as the bolt that you're going to use, and you can go through and cut that thread into the parent metal that you're working with. In this case, my 5mm plate that is on the bracket that I've been building. What I'm going to be doing is using this Venom Endurance cutting fluid, and I'm using that because it lubricates when you're drilling, when you're lathing, machining, doing machine work, or when you're cutting threads like I'm about to do. It lubricates it. It stops your tools from getting damaged with the process, and it keeps it a little bit cool. Now, sometimes I use WD-40 or any other lubricant, but this product here is a very good product. It's designed specifically for this purpose, so I use it. Just a dot, you don't need a lot. So what I'm about to do is go through and I'm going to thread cut these. Now, in the next video, if you see that I drill a slightly larger hole, that's because I've actually found that the hole that I've drilled isn't quite big enough. But I'm going to start off, try and cut this, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then I'll drill a slightly larger hole. And if I didn't say just a moment ago, you can actually get charts to tell you what size drill bit to use for a particular tap that you're about to use. I don't have those charts, so I just do that visual method that I was saying. So the column is mounted up to the mounts, and I'm going to now make the brace that goes across the dash. So I need to take it from one side of the dash to the other side, and so I need something sturdy across there that I'm going to take it across the top of the column and then mount it, weld it on, let's put some light on, to my plate, which is at the back just there. So that plate just there, that's the part I've been working on. So I'm going to create a bridge that goes across the top of the column, like the one that I put underneath the column to pick up the breakaway mounts. You've seen that. Then I'm going to do one across the top of the column to mount that bracket, that plate that I've been making, mount it to the dash, and I'm going to make it removable as well. So as it turns out, I reckon this piece of steel, which is I think it's 40 by 40 mil, about 2.5 mil thickness, I reckon it's got to work really well. So basically it will go from one side of the dash to the other. I'm going to have to cut a crescent out of the bottom of it. So cut a section out of it like that to go across the top of the column. And then what I'll do, I'll then mount some reinforcement across the top of it. So it'll essentially be a spacer and a spacer that's bridging across the column, and then I'll put some further reinforcing across the top of it, so a second piece of steel. And what I do, I just go to my scrap bin and have a look at what I've got and then start playing around with what's going to fit. So I've got lots of scrap, so I've got options. Then once I've made that bridge, I'm going to connect it to that plate that I've been making, and then this column will be firmly in place. Now it's really nice and firm now. It's got a bungee cord holding it there, but basically most of what's holding it up at the moment is the brace. Once I get it braced at this end, it will be rock solid. So let's play around with that. Okay, a bit of cutting and grinding later, and I've got that piece of pipe, and I've cut a very rough crescent in it, so a notch out to fit around the column. And while it's a bit hard to see, that piece of steel going across there is the part that I've just put in. So what it's going to do, if I wobble the column up and down, you can see the plate behind. So what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to make a piece that goes from here over to there, and then again I'll probably cut the center of this out because the lock, the ignition, there's a rod that goes down there and I don't want it to interfere with that. So this piece here is going to be mounted underneath, so I'll run some bolts up from underneath and bolt it so it can be bolted in and out along with the rest of the assembly. And I'll cut out a piece of flat plate that goes from here across to there so I can weld the two together, and then it all becomes one piece, and this becomes the rigid mounting point on the dash. Should be pretty easy. That hasn't taken me very long, which is good because everything else has. So I've just put a couple of metal screws in, a couple of Tech screws, one there and one there, just from the dash into that piece of steel stock that I've put there. So, and the idea of that is that I can put it back in exactly the same place each time because all I've got to do is line the holes up and I know where it goes, because things do tend to move. But what I can also show you is that this thing's actually really solid. It's got one piece of tube there and two screws, and that's what's holding it in place. Now my steering column, no bungee cord, it's just held there, so it's not even mounted to anything yet, but just by putting these pieces of steel, bracing it and so on, then you can see there's a heap of strength in there now. So let's continue. I've just got a piece of 3mm plate, again just an offcut that I had around, and I've clamped it to the top of that piece of square stock that was there, square tube, So I'm just going to tack it in place, and then the rear shadow line that you can see back about there, that's the back of it. So I'm going to just tack it in place onto the brace that I made before, and then once I'm happy that everything is tacked where I need it to be, then I'll remove it and weld it, trim it up, make it look a bit prettier. Okay, so as I promised, nothing pretty. This is it. So I just made this. It's going to be a lot more attractive than that when it's done. And then this plate here, this was my original plate. Just got it tacked in place at the moment. So it sits into the dash really well. Just got to undo the booster, drop the booster out of the way, and this comes out, which is not a problem because you're unlikely to ever take this out without having to take the booster out anyway. So you can see it's conformed to the shapes of the dash to the firewall. The firewall isn't perfectly square to the dash, and that's evident by this here, and that's okay. And the fact that I've moved the column across to the right a little bit, this would be partially due to that. So now that I've got this sorted, I'll go through and I'll try and clean this up a little bit more to be able to weld it effectively. But I'll weld across here, I'll weld across here. As I said, I will cut out the middle of this so it doesn't interfere with the steering lock and the ignition switch and so on. And then across here, again, I'll clean up across the back, weld that in. I'll cut this excess piece of steel out, maybe just cut it, or however I'll cut that out. This piece of steel already had these angles on it like that, and it actually tends to sit into a natural curve that's in one end of the dash, so I'm not going to change it. This is the two screw holes from where I put the tech screws in. So what I'll more than likely do is those points, I'll actually just drill a hole there, drill a hole there. I might weld a nut on the back of each, enlarge the hole in the dash, and that will be the point where I mount this to the back of the dash. I may go through and put another couple, we'll see. Probably not really necessary to be honest, but we'll see. So let's get some welding done. Okay, so I just finished putting this bridging part in that's going across the top of the column with this reinforcing plate, and Yep, I've welded it, ground it, cut off the excess metal and so on. So this is it. I'm just going through cleaning it up as best I can at the moment, but eventually I'll pull this whole thing apart and everything will be painted in satin black paint, which is my go-to colour for stuff that gets hidden behind dashes and things, but I still want it to look nice. Now we've got a bit of a guest appearance here, a good mate of mine, the Bone Man, he's known as. How you going, Bone Man?
Yeah, good thing, Toxic Todd.
That's
I've
good.
been enjoying your content. I've been subscribing and sharing as well.
You're a good man. Look at that, an unrequested plug. So now Bone Man is also my model for some of my gear. So if you want to be safe in your workshop, then you too can get your custom-made Toxic Garage Customs safety gear. So as Bone Man is modelling here, it comes in all different shapes and sizes, and we can do anything that suits you. And again, don't forget, we've got a sticker range as well, and it's coming soon.